George Galloway, and the mother of all talk shows. Welcome to the Open University of the Airwaves with George Galloway.
Highly productive meeting. Great progress has been made. The bestest ever meeting between Donald Trump's envoy, Mr. Witkoff, and the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. Does that mean the big earth-shattering sanctions and tariffs bill is over? And did he therefore alienate over 1 billion Indian people for nothing? It's Hiroshima Day, the day we're all supposed to remember exactly the awesome power to wipe out humanity that the atomic bomb brought. But now that atomic bombs are 100 times more powerful, we seem strangely sanguine about just how close we are to nuclear conflagration. Oh, and the captain of the Palestinian national football team was shot dead by Israel today while standing in a queue for bread for his family. As of this moment, no famous footballer has decided to give a fuck. It's all coming up here on the mother of all talk shows. Stay tuned.
Curious about our curriculum? Have something to say? Then call us now to join the debate on the mother of all talk shows. The only education you can get for free. George Galloway, the mother of all talk shows. With George Galloway, the world is our classroom, and you're welcome to sit in and join the seminar.
The 6th of August ought to be, and once upon a time was rather more than it is today, remembered with a certain somber air. It was the day in 1945 that little fat boy, the first atomic bomb, but not the last, was dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima, wiping out in an instant hundreds of thousands of people, dooming hundreds of thousands more to die in agony of radiation sickness, and dooming mothers in the labor wards in the city for generations to come to give birth to deformed, horribly deformed children as a result of one single atomic bomb. The United States, which was indeed the perpetrator of this atrocity, went on to drop another one on the city of Nagasaki. I myself, on a speaking tour, addressed crowds in both cities, and it's possible to imagine that the shadows on the wall, the smears of human flesh that were all that was left of human beings, men, women, and children, but almost every single one of them a civilian. The shadow of those nuclear bombs, that mushroom-shaped cloud, seemed, to me at least, still to hang over both of these cities. Now, don't get me wrong, Japanese fascism was a fantastic, fanatic atrocity in itself. Japanese militarism, fueled by that Japanese fascism, in alliance with Mussolini and Hitler, caused atrocities right across the Asian region. My own wife's family in Indonesia were occupied by the Japanese. The Malaysians were occupied by the Japanese. The Singaporeans, the Koreans most atrociously of all, the Vietnamese, the people of Thailand, the people of the Philippines, and the atrocities committed, especially by a special unit of the Japanese armed forces that performed experiments on human beings, live human beings, that would have made Mengele himself balk at the atrocity that was committed. So when I say that the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima, and especially the one that was dropped the second time on Nagasaki, was a crime, I mean it with all of the foregoing in mind. The Bombs were not necessary. Japan was on the point of unconditional surrender. The arguments that I was brought up to believe that the United States had no alternative but to drop those atomic bombs, or they would have had to fight beach by beach, street by street, house by house, in order to get to Hirohito's palace and force a harikiri upon the emperor, were all lies. They were all false. The Japanese surrender had all but been signed. It had been inked and awaited only a signature. The real reason why the United States dropped these 2 atomic bombs was not to bring Japan to its knees. It was already on its knees. The bombs were dropped to keep the then Soviet Union on its knees, to tell the then Soviet Union that the United States had a wonder weapon, a weapon to end all weapons, a mother of all bombs that would make the others quail in the world, and that unlimited United States hegemony under Truman in 1945 would be the new world order. Gone was the convivial and fraternal spirit of the great meetings of the great war leaders, Mr. Churchill, Stalin, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. Gone was the intention of the victorious powers together to shape that new world order. The intention was to divide the world and, if possible, to roll back any gains made ideologically, militarily, politically by the Red Army's stunning victories towards the end of World War II. Of course, it didn't work out that way. Unknown to Mr. Truman, unknown to Churchill, unknown to the oligarchies running the Western countries, the Soviet Union had many friends, including in Los Alamos. They had many friends in the nuclear bomb business. And before very long, Stalin was able to announce that the USSR too had a nuclear weapon. And now the successor country, Russia, has more than 5,000, not just nuclear bombs, but hypersonic nuclear weapons. Weapons that can be there in an instant. Weapons that do not need a propeller aircraft to drop them out of a hole in the bottom of the aircraft. Weapons that have no defense against them, like the Oroshenk, which simply is indefensible. No weapons system on the planet can stop it. The Russian successor state to the USSR has weapons that can turn all of the United Kingdom to ash, literally to ash, and in an instant, within 12 minutes from leaving their launch pad. Weapons that are independently targeted. Weapons that contain within them 5, 6, 7, 8 independent warheads that separate from the mothership over the target area, taking out every major conurbation in the United Kingdom, and ditto in other countries. So it didn't work out well. The Japanese paid a very high price, not just for fascism, but for the ultimate defeat of fascism. I'm laboring that point because we're now in a world situation where actually nobody ever names the country that dropped the atomic bomb. When you see a commemoration of Hiroshima Day now, it does indeed talk about the mass casualty event on this day in 1945, but it virtually never names the United States of America as the criminal state that dropped not one, but two. And that might be ringing a bell in your mind, because we have now grown used for almost 2 years of mass atrocities, of mass casualty events that appear to have no author. We're told that starving Palestinians are gunned down in a bread queue, but we're not told why they're starving, who starved them, and who gunned them down, as if some cipher somewhere had brought famine to the land, as if some alien force had landed and was machine gunning and tank shelling the people standing in the Hunger Games lines. I say Hunger Games because Israel has now murdered 220 footballers, many of them the finest footballers in the Arab world. And today they murdered the captain of the Palestine national football team. As of this moment, not a single footballer still playing the game, none of the top footballers who went to Qatar in their rainbow-colored armbands, who performed virtue signaling provocations in Qatar about the host country's reactionary attitude towards lesbian and gay rights. Not a single one of them has said a single word about the atrocities committed against fellow footballers who are dead, murdered, and in many, many cases, deliberately them targeted, deliberately murdered because of who they were and what they meant to Palestinian civil society, to the Arab world's civil society. Not one, no Ronaldo, no Messi, no Mohamed Salah, no Muslim player playing in the top leagues of any of the divisions has said one single word about a fellow footballer, in their case a fellow Arab, a fellow Muslim. None of them have the guts to even issue a statement of condolence, if not of condemnation. It makes me rage with anger, as you can now tell. But of course, 220 footballers is as nothing compared to the hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children who have been murdered, many of them in that Hunger Games that the Americans and the Israelis are playing in the Gaza Strip. Anyway, we have now reached the tipping point. But it may not tip the way that Netanyahu and his criminal gang anticipated. Netanyahu has declared that the Gaza Strip is going to be completely reoccupied. Now that's a big job. I myself was a frequent visitor to the Gaza Strip when it was wholly occupied by Israel. You may have heard me talk or read me say some of the horrors that I witnessed in those days, like coming around a corner with Mr. Abu Shawish, an Anthony Quinn lookalike of the United Nations, in a United Nations vehicle, and finding grown women and elderly women on their knees, cleaning the street with toothbrushes under the guns of the Israeli occupation forces. When I told Parliament upon my return what I had seen, even the strongest supporters of Israel were struck dumb. There was checkpoints. Every 100 yards or so, there were watchtowers everywhere. In the Jabalia camp, then a huge refugee camp, made such an impact upon me, I, on return, renamed my house Jabalia. But the resistance to the presence of these occupation forces was a 24/7 phenomenon. The Israeli occupiers never knew when someone was going to climb over that wire, when someone was going to open fire, when someone was going to plant and explode an IED. The attrition on the Israeli occupation, even back then when the resistance was much less battle-hardened than it has subsequently become, was very formidable indeed. Such that Sharon, no less, withdrew the Israeli occupation from Gaza, confining themselves to regular and devastating forages into Gaza, followed by withdrawal. So if Israel is going to fully occupy Gaza, it better know two things. First of all, that however many of the Palestinian resistance they have killed, resistors, entirely legal in their resistance to a foreign occupation of their land, every last one of them, entirely legal under international law, their sovereign right to resist foreign occupation. Don't expect it to be less difficult to occupy Gaza now than it was before. On the contrary, now that you have turned the Gaza Strip into Hiroshima, there's quite a lot of hiding places for the fighters to ambush you from within. But the second thing Israel needs to know, and don't take my word for it, take the word of the head of the Israeli army, who is threatening to resign over Netanyahu's decision. He says reoccupying the Gaza Strip is an impossibility. We don't have enough soldiers. They're committing suicide. They're going AWOL. They're refusing to turn up. The reservists are getting on a plane and flying to Florida instead. We don't have enough soldiers to do what you are ordering us to do. And moreover, those that we can put into a reoccupation of Gaza will suffer extreme levels of casualty and trauma. And the hostages that you told the world this was all about will surely perish in the carnage that will be unleashed. The Israelis have a solution, though. They've just asked the United States to send American troops to Gaza to help them reoccupy Hiroshima. History doesn't repeat itself, but it definitely often rhymes. So if you're a mother or a father in the United States, get ready for this. Your president might be about to send your son, your daughter, into the desert that is now Gaza. Only time left to comment on the extraordinary, best ever meeting that Trump just hailed between Witkoff and Putin. The meeting lasted 3 hours. That's a good sign. United States and Russian emissaries and leaders should be meeting each other all the time, constantly. The world is such a dangerous place. We're on the precipice of another nuclear conflagration in Europe, in West Asia, and of course, don't forget about it, over China and Taiwan. I welcome the meeting between Mr. Witkoff and President Putin. I welcome, if true, Trump's extraordinarily hyperbolic description of its level of success. But you'll forgive me if I wait to see and hear the details of what was discussed and what was decided. Our two guests this evening, the legendary Judge Andrew Napolitano and the legendary Larry Johnson, formerly of Well, how shall I put it, Larry? The bowels of the American security state will surely help us understand these and other issues in front of us tonight. You've come to the right place. It's the mother of all talk shows.
What a great show this is! I listened to it, I thought, wow, what a great show. I've called into your show today, George, because I'm a great caller. Probably the greatest caller you've ever had. I really am. The only way your show could be better is if it had more of me, Donald J. Trump, in it. You keep talking about me, George. You do. I've heard it. I have. So many of the American people, the best people, listen to your show. And I've heard them crying about me. I have. And I listen and I go, ooh, America, don't cry. Don't cry. You need to be careful what you say about me, George. You don't want me to put a tariff on your show like I did with China. And then you'll come running for my help, just like little Zelensky. You know, I know you will. I know these things. Make the mother of all talk shows great again. That's why we're here. That's what we're gonna do, George. We're gonna boost your ratings. Donald is gonna boost them bigly. I'm giving your show the Trump bump. You're welcome, George. Thank me. And remember, nobody talks like me. Nobody calls like me. And absolutely nobody ends a phone call like me. I'm hanging up now. Not because I finished, but because I won.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Okay, so here's the poll. Do you trust your government to regulate the internet? Duh. Is the Pope a Catholic? Do you trust your government to regulate the internet? Yes or no? You can answer, or vote rather, on my Telegram channel. Please make a note of it. It may in the end be the only place you can find me. It's t.me/George Galloway. You can vote on my X, which would be a half chance of not being able to find me on there. I'm algorithmically strangled, not so much that I can't breathe, but, well, I can't breathe all the oxygen I ought to be able to do on my X, on the YouTube community poll, and on the YouTube stream. Well, 27,240 of you have already voted, and it ain't looking good for the government regulators, except on X, which is truly amazing. 21% of people on X trust their government to regulate the internet. Yeah, really? Seriously? And now, if you want to call the show, it's toll-free in the United States and Canada, +1 844 944 3344. It's free of charge in Britain and Ireland, 08081 965522, and the worldwide number is 0044 203 966 2625. Now, Judge Andrew Napolitano is, I hope, on the line, but we may have to wait a few minutes for him. Here comes the judge, but we'll take Josh in California first of all. Josh, welcome. What would you like to say?
Yeah, George, I wanted to get your take on what Trump's legacy is going to be. We, in the United States and in the world, live still under the shadow of the legacy of presidents like Truman and both Bushes, legacies of war, nuclear war. And even though Trump has the opportunity and ran on this peace platform, it doesn't seem like that's his trajectory. It seems like he's ready to surrender his legacy to the continuation of the legacy of Truman and the continuation of the legacy of both Bushes. I have a joke that I like to tell, a MAGA joke.
Yeah, go on. Give me a... Yeah, I'm always up for a joke. Go ahead.
So when was America the greatest? Immediately before and immediately after Harry Truman and up until Kennedy. And the legacy of Truman that we live under, with nuclear bombing of Hiroshima, the establishment of the Zionist state, the Korean War, we're still there. We're still living in Truman's psychotic vision. And although Kennedy was very beloved,
he was very beloved, but he didn't have time or space to improve the situation all that much. But I'm with you on that, Josh. I think the United States died on the streets of Dallas in 1963. Josh in California asks about Trump's legacy. What I would say, Josh, is this. Two presidents have come to power with the ability to completely change things, with a blank canvas that they had in front of them. The first was Obama, who came to the presidency not just as the first black president, with all that that meant, but after the crash of 2008, had completely discredited the system of finance capitalism that dominated then and still dominates Western countries. Wall Street was on its knees, and he could have kept it there. He could have instituted a sweeping set of changes that subjugated Wall Street to Main Street, that subjugated Wall Street to the Rust Belt and to the great heartlands of industrial America. He could have taken power away from the desperate, pleading bankers on Wall Street and given it to the ordinary American. Moreover, he came to power when America was sunk in unpopular, unwinnable wars. He could have used that moment to extract America from those wars and to build a platform that ended forever the perpetual war machine, the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower himself had warned us about the overweening power of. And the second was Donald Trump. In this second term, Donald Trump could have said, I was going to do all of this in 2016, but these corrupt bastards hobbled me, crippled me with their Russia hoax. But now, guess what, guys? I'm back, and this time it's no more Mr. Nice Guy. He could have ended the Ukraine war in 24 hours, as he had campaigned that he was going to do. He could have imposed a ceasefire in Gaza, as he said in his campaign he was going to do. He could have drained the swamp. He could have locked them up. He had the locus, he had the motive, and he had the power to do so. Neither Obama nor Trump rose to those occasions and instead sunk to the depths, such that now at the Super Bowl, they're booing Donald Trump. The MAGA are voting with their feet against his policy of Israel first, his policy of more and more war, more and more sanctions, more and more tariffs, charging around like a bull elephant that doesn't know it's lost its mind. There's a legend on the line, Josh, or I'd let you come back. It's me in Oklahoma on Trump, India, and tariffs. I'm all ears, May, as always. Welcome back.
Salam, George. Habibi, how are you doing today?
By the grace of God, I'm fighting fit. Thank you very much.
I'm so glad to see you. I, too, am enraged over everything that's going on right now. And, you know, Trump has decided to put these horrific tariffs on India and every other country that doesn't get on their knees in front of him. and do the dirty act. I'm so frustrated to be an American right now. I love my country. I love the American people. But our government is absolutely beyond insane. And Trump apparently is still using his magic 8-ball. so just whatever he comes up with from day to day. I heard this tariff thing referred to as tariff Armageddon today. And I don't think anyone realizes how accurate that could be. All of this political finagling, these sanctions, these tariffs, this bullying to try to get Russia to capitulate after they've won. It's crazy. I don't even get where they get this idea that Russia would capitulate. Why would anyone who's winning a war capitulate? And they're just going to let Russia grind Ukraine into the dirt. But it's been Ukraine's choice. It has been Zelensky's choice to see Ukraine ground into the dirt. It is Armageddon for Ukraine, and it could very well be Armageddon for everybody if Trump does not calm down. And
calm down. You know that song? Have you heard that song, May? Calm down, calm down. I was singing it today about Donald Trump. I mean, this man is so out of control that he's picking fights with people that were well disposed towards him. India, the leadership in India is not against Donald Trump. Modi and Trump were bosom buddies. And he's now in a war of words and tariffs and sanctions against India. 1.5 billion people. Who picks a fight with a country that big, with a market that big? This seething mass of productive humanity, who alienates them for no reason? Because they're buying from Russia? But America is buying from Russia. Actually, America bought more from Russia than India bought, as a brave journalist pointed out to Trump at the press conference 2 days ago. And Trump's answer was, I don't know anything about that. Which, if true, he's too stupid to be the president. And if not true, he's too wicked to be the president. But he's done all that. And I figure he's about to call off the Tariff-geddon. Because what else can a wonderful, productive meeting in the Kremlin, what else can it mean but he's going to walk back all that talk, all those threats? But he can't walk back the bad feeling that he's left behind, and he can't walk back the lesson that will have been learned by all the BRICS countries. If we don't get our own alternative act together very quickly, then any or all of us can fall victim to this bullying. May, as always, a great pleasure to talk with you. Now, are you a MOATS supporter? Yeah, it only costs £1, $1, €1 to join. All you have to do is visit the moats.tv website. It's really, really easy. Here's the wall of fame tonight. Mike Elbini, Ian McAvney, Preston Zimmerman, Movie Dad, and Mohammed Siddiq. These are the Roll of Honor. At the kickoff of the show tonight, maybe new names will emerge by the end of it. I'm deeply grateful to each and every one of you who donates, many of you regularly. I mean, I just learned today of a very handsome donation. It would have been a handsome one-off donation but is in fact a recurring every month donation by one of our regular callers, and she knows who she is. If you can't get regular, and give £1, €1 or regular to keep the show going. Now, here comes the judge. Not just any judge, just the best judge in the whole wide United States. And I'm very glad to say he's with us now. Your Honour, as always, a particular welcome to the mother of all talk shows, and there's so much to talk about with you, legal issues as well as broader political ones. But may I start with the $64,000 question, as you used to call it, when $64,000 was more than it is today. Is anybody going to jail? Is anybody going to jail for Epstein, for Russiagate? I mean, I keep hearing about grand juries and threats to deal with these people. Or has your country accepted that it's no longer a country of law?
It is no longer a country of law. I'm sorry to say it. I don't know what the Attorney General thinks she's doing, but the statute of limitations has long run. Trump's attorneys general, he had two of them, during his first term would have been in a position to have prosecuted those who perpetrated Russiagate. But the statute of limitations, George, is 5 years. And these events, assuming they occurred as we believe they did, took place in 2015, 2016, and 2017. So they are time barred. They are well outside the statute of limitations. They would not have been outside the statute of limitations when John Durham, who was the special counsel investigating the investigators, was doing his work, or when William Barr, who was the Attorney General at the time, the second of Trump's two attorneys general, but the Attorney General after the Russiagate was concluded, he could have done something about it. But they waited the 4 years while Biden was in office. Now they've impaneled a grand jury. The grand jury's in the wrong city because these events occurred in Washington. It's sitting in Miami. Don't even ask me why. I haven't the slightest idea. But more importantly, there's nobody left to indict. On Epstein, I don't know what's going to happen. Much to Trump's dismay, the White House is pulling their hair out over this, but they won't admit it. Republicans in the House of Representatives have succeeded in issuing a subpoena to the Justice Department for the entire Epstein report. Now, that is probably about 250,000 pages if all of it is printed. A lot of it is not printed, it's digital. But it's a tremendous amount of material. The only thing they can refuse to submit are the names of the victims, so they've been told to redact the names of the victims. But everybody else's name that's in there, whether they're innocent bystanders or actual participants in these nefarious events that Epstein concocted, all of that is going to be in the hands of the House Oversight Committee. Now, that committee has a staff. The staff has investigators. The investigators are ex-FBI agents. They are familiar with these files. They know exactly what, not these very files, but this type of file, and they know exactly what they're looking for. This committee has also subpoenaed the 6 most recent attorneys general of the United States, going back to the George W. Bush administration in both parties. They've subpoenaed Bill and Hillary Clinton. What does Hillary Clinton know about Epstein? Did Bill whisper into her ear what he did when he returned from Epstein's island? God only knows. But these people do not have immunity. They'll have to answer questions. Could you imagine the sight of an American president, former president, invoking the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination? It would be quite a sight, but that's what we may be witnessing very soon in August and September coming up.
We'll come back to Clinton, I promise, because I despise the Democrats and the Republicans equally just the same. So I pivot only for this purpose. It is said that Donald Trump's name appears on 100,000 of these documents, which, if true, would make him, maybe next to Bill Clinton, easily the most often mentioned buddy of Epstein. And now, of course, you're right, and you made the caveat. You could be a buddy of Epstein but not have actually committed any crimes or failed to report any crimes that he committed that you knew of. But 100,000 mentions is a lot of trouble for Donald Trump, and explains why he made this extraordinary U-turn from drain the swamp to the swamp's not important after all. Don't you think?
Well, I had not heard until I just heard it from you about 100,000 mentions. I don't know how many mentions there are, but I do believe that politically he is irretrievably damaged just for having been a bystander at these tawdry events. I don't know of any allegations against him. I may have given that impression the last time I was on with you, but I don't know of any credible allegations against him for criminal or even inappropriate sexual behavior. But if his name is mentioned a lot there, then people will start to ask, as you just did, how could he not have known what was going on? And since it involved children, did he not have a moral compass to put a stop to it, or at least to call the police? There's a lot more of this to come out. Like I said, the White House is pulling its hair. The last thing they wanted was this subpoena. One would have expected that the Democrats would have subpoenaed this document or these documents in order to embarrass him, but it's his own Republicans that are doing so. I share your antipathy for both parties. They're both in favor of war. They're both in favor of big government. Neither of them is in favor of the freedom of speech. They're both in favor of giving Israel whatever it wants. They're both in favor of continuing to fund a losing cause in Ukraine. They're equally as culpable. But MAGA, the Make America Great Again political base of the president, is putting tremendous pressure on Republican members of the House of Representatives, and that pressure reached a boiling point this week when Republicans voted to issue this subpoena. I was surprised the subpoena is so broad. It commands everything except the names of the victims. Now, you may ask me, can they get it? Well, in Trump's first term, the Democrats ran the House and they subpoenaed his tax returns when he was a private citizen. That had nothing to do with congressional business. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled unanimously Congress can subpoena whatever it wants. So Trump lost that case. His tax returns were exposed. It turned out that in years in which he said he earned billions, he paid $750 in income tax. I'm not here to besmirch him on his income taxes. God bless him if he knows how to reduce his taxable income. But I am here to say that the Supreme Court is on record of saying Congress can get whatever it wants. So Bill Clinton may not want to testify. Hillary Clinton may not want to testify. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, may not want to surrender the report. They will have no choice but to testify and to surrender the full Epstein file, with the exception of the names of the victims.
Well, just again, for the avoidance of doubt, like you just did, I don't myself believe that Trump was guilty of any crimes in relation to the Epstein affair, because if he were, the Democrats over the last 4 years would have told us so. They would have. They did everything, bar killing him. They took him on bogus journeys through the courts. They they would have done anything to stop Donald Trump's second coming. And if there was evidence of crimes by Trump in relation to the Epstein affair, they would have acted on it. I myself am sure of that. What I equally
I agree with you entirely.
What I equally think is that if you were as close to Epstein as to be mentioned in 100,000 documents, it is an astounding act of stupidity if you are going to claim you had no idea that this fellow was a criminal, that this fellow was a moral sink of depravity. And then you see videos of Donald Trump describing sleeping with 17-year-old girls as his personal alcoholism. So I think we know about Donald Trump's personal morals, and that will have been what drew him to Epstein so many times over so many years, more than 20 years. So he didn't blow the whistle on him, is my point. He didn't call the police on him. If I knew somebody was doing the things that we now know Epstein was doing, I would certainly consider it my duty to try to put a stop to it, and if it would not stop, to bring it to the attention of the police. But Judge, I said I'd come back to Clinton. Clinton was on the island. I think it's common ground now. Was on the island 39 times. What could he have been doing on that island with the pervert Jeffrey Epstein, if not himself being involved in nefarious activities?
Well, the 39 times is well documented, George, because of the times that he flew in Epstein's private jet. I don't know how the former president can deny that. If he does, he'll be lying under oath, or at least materially contradicted by the hard evidence. He has an even more difficult explanation to make, and I don't know what that explanation is going to be. How could he not have known what was going on? Look, George, in the file, according to the Attorney General, are many, many, many videotapes. Epstein was a fanatic for videotaping things. So God only knows who is on those videotapes. But the ex-FBI agents now working for the House Oversight Committee will soon be viewing those tapes. Could you imagine if during his public interrogation, with international television watching, the interrogators play those tapes and show him on it? I'm speaking of Bill Clinton now, not Donald Trump. This, of course, will be devastating for what remains of his legacy. But if I could just veer off for a minute, I think the damage to Trump could very well be very severe, and this will bleed out into the Republicans. This will cause, for better or for worse, the Democrats to take control of the House. Forget about their shenanigans in Texas. I think there's going to be, and I could be wrong, it's more than a year from now, a Democratic wave in 2026, which will be a nightmare for Donald Trump, because they'll probably impeach him again if they control the House. And a lot of this will come about because the MAGA people will not vote for Trump-financed and Trump-designated candidates because of their fury over Epstein.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some polling today, Judge, that showed numbers in the high 80s. MAGA Republicans, 82%. Non-MAGA, but Republicans, 85%. And Democrats in the high 80s and one segment in the 90s. There's overwhelming public support in America for full revelation of the Epstein files. And Donald Trump is the man that is standing like King Canute, telling the waves to go back. One last question on this field, and if you can give me time, I'd like to ask you about something else. But on this field, doesn't what I'm about to say encapsulate the extraordinary, freakish nature of things amongst the Washington political elite? The Obamas have just sold their luxury weekend accommodation in the Hamptons to who? To leswexner, whose personal money man was Jeffrey Epstein. Wexner has bought the Obamas property at well over the asking price. I mean, you're an honorable judge of great standing, but if you smelt that, wouldn't you think something was fishy about it?
Yes, you would. I had not heard that, George, and you can't make that up. I'm going to assume that your sources are credible. This has not been reported in the United States unless this happened in the past half hour while we've been together. But you're right.
But it happened in the last 24 hours.
It's deep and disgusting.
It is. Now, you mentioned the losing war in Ukraine, and I, of course, wholly concur with that. But I'm wondering what to make of the United States' rapidly veering from side to side attitude to it. You know, Trump humiliated Zelensky in the Oval Office. He called him a dictator before Zelensky arrived. He said he had no cards to his face. He said to Zelensky, "You're gambling with World War III," to his face in the Oval Office. And then the next thing you know, he's ready to take us to the brink of nuclear war in defense of Zelensky's administration and Zelensky's regime. He's going to condignly punish countries like India. Yesterday, he's fallen out with allies all over the world over this, and now he's telling us that Witkoff may have pulled some rabbit out of the hat. We haven't seen the rabbit yet, but if Trump's hyperbole is even half accurate, we're on our way to a settlement. What do you make of it all?
I don't make much of it at all, and I don't think Trump's words are credible. I read what he said after Mr. Witkoff spent 3 hours with Vladimir Putin. I'm going to suggest to you that Putin may have reduced his demands from 5 down to 2, but those 2 would be an immediate evacuation of the Ukraine military and the Ukraine government offices from the parts of Ukraine that have been traditionally Russian, and an absolute ironclad commitment that Ukraine will never join NATO. Now, if President Zelensky does that, he'll have a hard time getting home at night because the hardline nationalists for whom he is a puppet will see that his days are over. So he's really caught between a rock and a hard place. Trump has been saying over and over again that Ukraine is Joe Biden's war. It is now Donald Trump's war. No question about it, George.
Extraordinary. And finally, and I'm very grateful for the time you've given us. I know you have many other commitments. The Israelis have asked the United States to send troops to help them reoccupy Gaza. This in the face of the head of the army, the chief of staff of the Israeli army, outright refusing Netanyahu's order to reoccupy the strip on the grounds that he doesn't have enough soldiers, that the task is beyond Israeli forces alone, and that it would take between 1 and 2 years to achieve even if it could be achieved. Israel, therefore, is asking the United States not just to pay for everything, not just to protect everything in the UN and elsewhere, but now to be a party to the crime, directly, with boots on the ground. Surely that would be a bridge too far, even for the American political class.
It would be immensely unpopular here in the United States. Theoretically, it couldn't be done without asking Congress, but Trump doesn't follow the Constitution or the federal laws. But right now, the slaughter and the starvation in Gaza are immensely unpopular here. I'm talking about 80% to 20%. And many of that 80% are American Jews who condemn this. The 20% that support it are the Mike Johnson, Mike Huckabee types who have a perverse, in my view, you know, I'm like you, an old-fashioned Roman Catholic. These people have a perverse view of Christianity, that somehow the God of Abraham mandates that Benjamin Netanyahu run Israel. This is absurd. Ted Cruz told this to our friend Tucker Carlson. But back to whether or not American troops will go, Trump would totally undermine his credibility and his base if he were to do that.
Let's hope that even that dissuades him from doing so. Your Honor, it's always a privilege to interview you, and I'm sure that this interview will go far and live long. Judge Andrew Napolitano, thanks for joining us on the
Thank you, George. Thank you.
All the shows. Well, I personally think that was a truly amazing interview. Let's see if our first caller agrees. She is the one, the only, the legend, Donna in Panama. Donna, welcome back. What would you like to say?
Thank you. Thank you so much, George. That was a wonderful interview. I will have to say something that I never thought I would say to such erudite and eloquent gentlemen, but I disagree with you and the judge about one thing. That is, you said that if Trump were actually involved, actually did something illegal, immoral, in terms of the Epstein investigation, that the Democrats would have found it. Here's where I disagree. If no Democrat had been alleged to have been involved with Epstein, I would have agreed. But here's what I think happened. The reason the Democrats didn't do anything about it is some, probably either Clinton, one of the Clintons, or one of their surrogates went to the Democrats in Congress and said, look, drop the Epstein thing. You can do whatever you want with Russia, whatever you want with his taxes, just drop the Epstein thing, okay? And I truly believe they took those orders, and I'll tell you why. The other day, Chris Hedges had the journalist that's done the most exhaustive research into Epstein, and actually had written a book about another child sex trafficking case called the Franklin scandal. I don't know about that, but I know that he wrote a book about it. But anyway, he's been following this case for years before any of us were talking about it. And he says that Trump watched while he got, may I be graphic? Is that all right?
Yeah.
And tell the truth?
Yes,
all right.
yes, 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 it is.
Trump watched Jeffrey Epstein having sex with multiple girls, and while he got a hand job from a woman, and he apparently got oral sex from two girls, a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old, and then complained about their bad technique.
And this is alleged to have been watched by Donald Trump.
No, he got a blowjob. Donald Trump got a blowjob from a 12 or 13-year-old, or two different 12 and 13-year-olds. And then Donald Trump complained to Epstein about the girls, about their alleged lack of good technique in giving him a blowjob.
Wow. Well, of course, Trump isn't here to confirm or deny that. He's welcome on the show. I know that he has listened to the show in the days we were on FM radio in DC. But he is welcome on the show, or anyone speaking for him. There is this allegation. We've got no evidence to confirm it, Donna, but it definitely sounds interesting. And for the record, can I just say, Donna, I didn't say that Donald Trump hadn't done anything immoral. His entire life has been immoral. He has been conducting acts that are immoral on multiple levels, not just sexual, all of his life. What I said was, I doubt if he had done anything criminal, because I felt sure that the Democrats in their 4 years of trying to destroy him would definitely have deployed it if they had had that evidence. But Donna, last word from you. If Russiagate is, as the Honourable Judge said, timed out, the statute of limitations making it impossible to prosecute the people who were responsible for what were severe crimes against the democracy, against the republic. The Epstein business is definitely not timed out. Is this going to go anywhere? Or is Donald Trump going to successfully resist all efforts to keep the lid on what appears to be a truly horrific pot of misery and vice and crime? Is Trump going to lose this battle or win it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, has Starmer paid any price for the rent boys and the arson attacks? I mean, that's disappeared.
Well, yes, although the wheels of justice in our country grind exceedingly slow, especially in some cases. And the case of the Ukrainian rent boys and the arson attacks on the British Prime Minister's property and former property has inexplicably, A, been punted well into next year with the suspects in custody, not out on bail, and B, has excited no inquiry from the British media about what it was all about. I just wondered if you had a hunch, if things were moving now so powerfully on the Epstein front that Trump's going to lose this battle. The Republicans in Congress with their subpoena are going to show it all.
I don't know. I can't say. I don't know. A lot of MAGA has turned against Trump on this, a lot. But who knows? Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll definitely be keeping a watchful eye on it here in the mother of all talk shows, because, not just because, it's entirely right that behavior of this kind is punished, and the miscreants named and shamed, the criminals named and shamed. It's not just morally important that this should be so. It is the case that if people in powerful positions can do anything that they want to lesser mortals around them that they can hire and use and abuse, then the next generations of rich and powerful people will continue to do the same. The corollary being, if we can destroy the careers and the wealth of people who have been doing these things, it will be an example to future generations. Always a pleasure, Donna, in Panama. Not always as colourful as this call, but I'm deeply grateful to you, and I hope to meet you over the next few months. Now, our podcast is doing fantastic work. It's been in the top 10 in Lithuania, Bulgaria, and Indonesia again this week, much to Gayatri's delight. We're in the top 30 for politics in India, South Africa, the UAE, and Ireland. You can download the MOATS podcast by scanning the QR code on the corner of your screen right now. You can listen as well to the weekly podcast on our website, moats.tv. When you're there, leaving your donation tonight or later. Now, Ola is in Poland, where they've just got a new president today. He wants to talk about Trump's Nobel Peace Prize. Surely, Ola, the Nobel Peace Prize is now beyond him. What do you say?
Hello, George. Good to be with you this evening after a long one.
Thank you.
I would like to give an opinion on the interview, that wonderful interview with the judge, and based on the previous caller. I think, first, I don't really agree with the logic that if BJT or POTUS did something wrong with or is implicated negatively in Epstein saga, that the Democrats would have used it against him. The reason why I don't fully agree with this is, what if the Democrats does not have the wrongdoing, the records of the wrongdoing? What if it belongs to the Mossad and the Israeli government, and they're using it for his erratic behavior to pressure him or blackmail him for his erratic behavior in Gaza? Obviously, the Democrats wouldn't have had access to that if it's being held by the Israeli government. That's my own inclination about this Epstein saga. But on the Nobel Peace Prize that I really
go
about,
on.
Please don't give Donald Trump Nobel Peace Prize, because the last American president that was given Nobel Peace Prize went to Libya to destroy Libya after getting Nobel Peace Prize. So I don't trust that if Trump was given Nobel Peace Prize, I mean Obama, I was referring to Obama. I don't trust that if Trump is given Nobel Peace Prize today, we won't have Third World War on the horizon. This is what I just want to say.
I was going to say, how bad do you need to be to get the Nobel Peace Prize? Some of the worst scoundrels in history have won the Nobel Peace Prize. But you named just one of them. Henry Kissinger would be another. The prize is completely debased, even by being discussed in the same sentence as the words Donald Trump. Now look, I've got to take a break. I'm 9 minutes late in taking a break, but coming up right after it, you definitely don't want to miss the one and only Larry Johnson, veteran of the CIA and the State Department's Office of Counter-Terrorism, and the founder of Berg Associates. All coming up after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
You know, and it's a very, thank you for, I'm a big fan of your show, Gigi. Great debate, great. And I'm Scottish. I'm very passionate about what's happening there, I had a great mom. She was Scottish, Mary McLeod. She taught me well. She taught me well at everything, including golf. I love Scotland, and I love the Scottish food. It's great food. I said to Melania, haggis. Look at that. What's more Scottish than that? Me. I am that haggis. She said, what, thin-skinned and full of crap?
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Well, my next guest loved that ad break, and so do I. But first, the poll. 30,000 people have voted now on the poll. Do you trust your government to regulate the internet? Well, it's not going the way of the governments, let me just put it that way. And you've got 30 minutes left to vote on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway, on my X, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. Larry Johnson, good friend of mine now, is one of the wisest guys in Washington, D.C. He's a veteran of the CIA. He's a former member of the State Department's Office of Counter-Terrorism. He's the founder of Berg Associates, which does a lot of important and significant work around these issues. And most importantly of all, he's a regular and very popular guest of the mother of all talk shows. Larry, nice to see you again. Looking seasonal. The last time we met, we were rather colder than we currently are. We had snow on our boots, if you know what I mean. There's so much I want to ask you, Larry, but let me start with the breaking news, as it were, that Mr. Witkoff had a very, 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 very good meeting with President Trump, and what that might mean in your expert view. Does it mean that India is going to be punished tomorrow or not? Does it mean that China is going to be punished? Is the big sanctions tariff package now postponed? Because it would seem perverse to continue with these if there's very good news out of Moscow, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it is entirely confusing. The image we've seen of a smiling, relaxed Vladimir Putin with Steve Witkoff, like welcoming an old buddy that you hadn't seen for a while. Hey, Steve, good to see you. But then at the same time that's taking place, Trump is announcing he's not only doing with the 50% tariffs on India, he's bumping it up an additional 25%. So right away, he's sending a message that he's attacking Russia's ally, India. Now, before coming on air, I saw news out of the New York Times that supposedly Putin and Trump will meet next week. Now, if that takes place, that marks a major reversal on the part of Putin. Because in the past, he said, hey, we'll have a meeting when there's something actually to discuss, which means that there's been work done by the journeymen and journeywomen laboring to put together a deal. There's no deal in place. I cannot imagine that Vladimir Putin is going to back away from what has been his position since June 14th of 2024, which implies the recognition of Crimea and the Donbass as Russian territory by the United States and the international community, the withdrawal of NATO personnel and forces out of Ukraine, the Ukrainian forces withdrawing from Russian territory and instituting an immediate ceasefire. But we'll see. I'm afraid that if Putin did make concessions on those issues, I think he would very well be in a position to be removed from office, because I don't see the Russian military willing to go along with that kind of program at all.
No, especially given the price in blood and treasure and breach of all relations, basically, with all Western countries, and the fact that Russia is winning on the battlefield quite a rate of knots. What's the front line looking like to you?
Yeah, it is. We go back a couple of years, you would see Russia's military activities concentrated in like one spot, say Bakhmut, or then the following year it was Avdiivka. Right now, what you're seeing is that they're concentrating activity in at least 8 or 9 different areas at significant levels. It would be on par with what we saw with respect to the battles surrounding Bakhmut and Avdiivka, with the difference being Russia has now perfected the technique of integrating drone, not just drone warfare where the drones attack positions, but drones using surveillance ahead of the ground forces. So, imagine you walk out of your home, out to your street, and you've got a gun and you have to take the street, take control of it. You don't know what's up at the end. But now with the drone flies up, tells you, hey, George, here, there's nobody here, or the ambush is sitting up here on the left. So then how to attack it and can do it much more efficiently without putting yourself at risk. And that's why we've seen a dramatic fall off in Russian casualties this year compared to previous years. And so at the same time, they're able to advance much more rapidly. And with the drones having both that intelligence capability to look and see and tell you real time what's going on, they also have the ability to bring in drones that can operate just like a rifle shot. They can go through a window, through a door, into an underground passage and blow up the enemy. So Russia's having great success at places like Pokrovsk, and then just north of that, south of that, plus they've taken territory in Dnipropetrovsk. They're moving in Zaporizhia. They're moving up north in Sumy and in Kharkiv. So they've got the big push, and we've heard that the Russian general staff anticipates that they could very well have this thing wrapped up in 3 months.
Yes, I saw that figure of 3 months too. That would be an odd time for the Russian side to pause and to make the concessions that you and I just speculated about there. Equally, it could be that Donald Trump is the one making the concessions. It could be that Zelensky is on his way out to be replaced by an airbrushed Mr. Zaluzhny. The possibilities are many, but Trump has so angered. India is a country that is really buzzing. Not quite buzzing like China, but it's the second best thing. The Indian economy is vaulting forwards at phenomenal levels, and your country just picked a fight with it.
Yeah.
And insulted it and threatened it. That doesn't seem like statecraft to me, Larry.
Oh, you couldn't have said it better, brother. Look, he's just repeating the pattern of what he did with Brazil. If you would have asked me a year ago about Brazil and being the weak sister in BRICS, I would have said absolutely. It's not going to happen. Well, they had the BRICS summit. And in the midst of the BRICS summit, Trump hits them with tariffs, not because in fact, we had a trade surplus with Brazil, but because of Brazil's internal politics. And Lula was just outraged. So what's happened? Well, Brazil is now replacing U.S. soybeans and pork in sales to China. And so the United States sanctioned Brazil on its coffee. Well, guess what? The United States isn't the only country in the world that drinks coffee. There are lots of others. And Brazil has just signed a new deal with China. So the same phenomena is going to take place with India, with one exception. Brazil does not sell the United States a single thing that we absolutely need. India does. India is a producer of pharmaceuticals that are critical in the United States supply chain. If India does exactly what China did with rare earths and just says, now we're going to put some restrictions on that until these other trade deals are sorted out, it could really hurt the United States, and I think it will hurt the United States economically. So this Trump strategy of trying to bully people instead of putting them into a fetal position where they're cowering in the corner, begging for relief, it's emboldening them to stand up and come together and say, we're tired of being bullied by the United States and we're going to fight back.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it made Lula into an absolute pillar now of the BRICS, and it's propelled Modi to make his first visit to China for 6 years. He's going to the 80th commemorations of the Second World War. China and India were actually having a war quite recently, and Trump's conduct has pushed India and China together to the extent that Modi, once Trump's best buddy, is now headed for Beijing. It's a bewildering set of diplomatic failures, and yet the MAGA faithful continue to cheer him on, except on one issue, and that is Israel. When Steve Bannon, once Donald Trump's vicar on earth, just issues a one-line tweet, Israel first, you know that the MAGA base is significantly moving away from Trump's bizarre, obscene relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Let me just note that maybe what Trump's strategy with India and China and such, maybe it's a backhanded way to try to win the Nobel Peace Prize by bringing them together. So he's so desperate to get that Nobel Peace Prize.
Or maybe Trump is a Russian agent, as they alleged all along.
Now, as far as the MAGA base goes, Trump has really damaged himself, and it's a combination of Epstein and Israel, and those two are in fact connected. And if you've watched Tucker Carlson, Candaceowens, and then Steve Bannon, they have been blistering, particularly Tucker and Candace. She has an enormous, she got like 4.4 million subscribers on YouTube. And they're not letting up at all on this. And Trump has he has genuinely damaged himself. I think we did learn an important fact this week. Turns out that Jeffrey Epstein was an FBI informant. It's sort of, that's verified.
Yeah.
We saw the documentation.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? Now we come up with a plausible motive for who killed him, had him killed. Because if you're Jeffrey Epstein and you've been arrested and you're telling folks, hey, I'm gonna tell you what my role was with the FBI. I'm not going down alone. It's easy to make him disappear. And frankly, I think that's one of the things Trump is now covering up now that he understands that. But at the same time, to completely make yourself a slave of Bibi Netanyahu and to facilitate the murder of the Palestinian people, it is an outrage. It's beyond outrageous. And I wrote earlier this week that there's a variety of things that countries, regardless of what the United States is doing, that even countries like Russia, India, and China, they're trading partners with Israel. Break relations, cut off diplomatic relations, cut off economic trade, make them pay a price. That's the only thing Israel's going to understand. Because otherwise, they're going to continue this policy of starvation. And it's something, the images are sickening and they're horrific. And anybody that's ever been around people that have been on the verge of starvation, as I have, it's something that for the world to stand by idly and do nothing is just, it's a sin.
A sin indeed. Staying on Epstein for a moment, although some people say it's all about Miriam Adelson's $100 million. But I take the view that eaten bread is soon forgotten. Miriam Adelson's $100 million donation to Donald Trump's last election campaign is definitely forgotten. And he's not running in another election. He doesn't need these donations again. In any case, he's vastly more wealthy today than he was back then in 2015, 2016. I don't believe it's about that money at all. I am firmly convinced that it's about blackmail. I'm firmly convinced that Donald Trump had someone come and make a call on him and show him what it is that the Israelis have got on him. I know that Kash Patel and all the others are denying, Bondi is denying that there's any foreign agencies involved, denying that there's any evidence of blackmail. But I find it difficult to explain a man who will sacrifice his whole presidency for a relationship which at least 3/4, maybe 80% of the American people thoroughly disapprove of, namely this alliance with Netanyahu in the middle of a genocide.
Yes, no, I think there's another possible blackmail element here, that it could also involve a member of his family, either his sons or daughter, or her daughter's husband, Jared Kushner. But there clearly are some pressure points there. The other thing, though, we're looking at is increasing erratic behavior on the part of Donald Trump. He engages in confabulation. And as you know, confabulation means it's not that someone's knowingly lying about something. It is they are telling things that are false, that are not true, but they genuinely believe they are true. And it's been sort of an increasingly bizarre trait of Trump of late in this last 6 months. And frankly, I know somebody that has had a chance to meet with him both back in 2024, but has met with him this year. And he said there has been a noticeable change going on. He described it as a meeting with a 1,000-year-old man. So I think what we're witnessing here is someone who's lost his moral judgment, his ability to honestly assess the situation and recognize he's complicit in murder. He is enabling genocide.
Without any shadow of a doubt. And now the Israelis are asking you to send troops to help them reoccupy the Gaza Strip. Do you think there's any possibility of the U.S. agreeing to do that?
I don't rule anything out. In fact, I could see them doing that as a way to help rid the land of the Palestinians and open the way for the development of Trump property there. That's one of Jared Kushner's goals. So, I absolutely, as far-fetched as it sounds, I could see Trump absolutely doing that. However, I'm pretty sure you've seen the interview that Tucker-Carlson did with the Colonel Aguilar. Maybe you've even had Colonel Aguilar on your show. But
not yet.
Not yet, but we want his eyewitness account about what was actually going on the ground from the standpoint of a military veteran, a man well schooled in the Geneva Convention and the war and the laws of war, and understanding what the important role of military leadership that it plays in preventing abuses of civilians. And what's going on there to put the United States troops into that position, they'd end up being shot and killed. And so that, what we've witnessed here is that despite all of the hype surrounding the supposed prowess of the Israeli military, we've seen that Hamas, after more than approaching 20 going on 2 years, having only rifles, small arms, RPGs, they have fought a military that has every technical weapon advantage in the world to a standstill. And to the point that the Israeli commanders are saying, if we try to clean this out, it's going to take years. And Israel doesn't have years. Israel can't sustain this.
Yes, my thoughts entirely. Now, you have some pretty peculiar high officials. The third most important man in the state is the Speaker of the House. Where did he go for his vacation? Where was he pictured on his vacation? telling us all that Scripture requires us to stand up for Netanyahu's crimes and to stand with Israel, whatever, he goes to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. Larry, I'm sure you know this. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is 100 yards away from the Wailing Wall. Why do these people never go? They say they're Christians. Why don't they ever get pictured at the stone where Jesus was anointed? Why have they got to head? They called the house to an early, premature summer vacation and then shot off Randy Fine and Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. And there he is with the skull cap on and his hand on the wall and promising eternal devotion. What's wrong with these people, Larry?
Yeah, this trait of, I call it the evangelical Christian Zionism. I grew up in a sect that was very much that way, and I call us the Exodus generation because we were raised with the movie Exodus that featured Paul Newman and told the story, portrayed Israel as David, the nasty Arabs as Goliath, and this inspiring, we've got to stand with Israel. Now, so, I'm 70, and people my age, a little younger, that did shape their view. I've heard, John Mearsheimer's talked about it as well. The current generation doesn't have that necessarily, but when you get into this Christian, I don't want to offend people by calling it nonsense, but this Old Testament nonsense, that there's a God who supposedly is creator of all people, yet this God decided that this one particular group of people is so much more special than everybody else, that in fact, God gives us commandments, thou shalt not kill, except, you guys go ahead, kill all the Amaleks you want, because even though I created them, they're no good. I try to be a rational person. I find that nonsensical. And the real irony in this is so many of these Zionists actually do not believe in the Torah and they don't believe in God. They're atheists. And yet they take what is written in this book, which was written by Jewish scholars while they were in captivity in Babylon, and they take that as, well, it's relevant for today. And then you get people like Michael Johnson, no relation to me, by the way. Let me get that disclaimer in there. But Michael Johnson said, well, the scriptures say so. And it shows he doesn't even know how to read the scriptures because the scriptures say nothing about the Jews. It says only Abraham. And as I recall, Abraham had two sons. And one of those sons, the Muslims are the descendants of him. So, we got to get away from using these ancient texts as a justification for our current bad deeds. Absolutely ludicrous.
Now, the 1,000-year-old man may or may not last the whole term, but he's already indicated that although he'd love to run again, he doesn't think he's going to. And he appears to have anointed his vice president, J.D. Vance, who's been mighty quiet of late, I should say, but foisted upon him a running mate, little Marco Rubio. Trump says that's the dream ticket. I very much doubt that J.D. Vance will agree to be lumbered with little Marco. Do you agree?
Yes. I think J.D. Vance, apart from the fact that he's married to a woman of Indian descent and has family members who are actually now in India, is not too happy with how Trump's policies are affecting that part of his family. But I guess to his credit, he is being a loyal vice president, and at times that means you got to try to defend the indefensible. But I think overall he's shown the instincts that these perpetual wars he's not in favor of, and he will he has I think he has exerted what influence he could. Again, I can't express enough alarm on my part about Trump's deteriorating mental condition, because his judgment is definitely off, and he's making some pretty irrational statements. We're going to know here in about an hour. He's supposed to make a speech, and we'll give a summary of what was discussed today with Vladimir Putin. So we'll have a better idea if we actually have any prospect for peace on the horizon.
Absolutely so. Speaking of the Democrats, as we weren't, because nobody does, because they're completely irrelevant in American politics at this moment, is there any sign of anyone emerging as a Democrat candidate for the presidency with any credibility?
No, not yet. I mean, this is what's been fascinating is you've seen Trump. He started to his popularity is falling, and normally when that happens, you see the popularity on the Democrat side going up. They're not moving the needle at all over there either. I think there is a growing disgust with just the status quo of the politics, the recognition that Trump is behaving just like one of the old, mainstream politicians, and people really are longing for a change. That's why somebody as radical as this Mamdani fellow up in New York City, who's an avowed socialist, they keep the establishment's doing everything they can to try to sabotage him. I think short of killing him, he's going to win. And then, once he wins,
he's going to win. He's going to win big, Larry.
Yeah.
He's going to win big.
I think you're right.
50% of the Jews in New York City are going to vote for him. And yet he's got the New York Post, the New York Times, the CNN. Everybody is trying to destroy him, and he's just getting stronger. It is a remarkable business. Well, we'll keep up to date, Larry. I hope to see you soon. Nice of you to come on the Mother of All Talk Shows again this evening. Thanks for joining us. Larry Johnson, veteran of the CIA and the State Department's Office of Counter-Terrorism, and founder of Berg Associates. Let me take a quick break, then it's your calls, all the way up to Gayatri's social media roundup. Stay tuned. There's a legend on the line in Oklahoma. It's May on Trump. Welcome back, May.
Trump is using a magic 8-ball to make his decision. He apparently has completely lost whatever mind he had to begin with. This is just ridiculous. Does he really think anyone's going to believe that? I'm here to say, and I'm here to join you and everybody else, the emperor has no clothes on. He's as naked as they come. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure he got naked with some young people. And that is why he so desperately is trying to kill this whole Epstein thing. And he's just making it worse.
I'm wondering when Donald Trump knew that he was implicated in these Epstein files and what it was that he knew. That's the big question, because he wouldn't have been banging the Epstein drum all this time and then suddenly to pull the rug. That tells me that it was a late decision, that someone came late to Trump to say, you really don't want to be doing that.
You are listening to the Mother of All Talk Shows with George Galloway.
So do you trust your government to regulate the internet? Yes or no? I'm going to give you 5 minutes to get this vote up a bit further. 30,538 of you have voted so far. 5 minutes call. Let's go to Sarah in Minnesota on U.S. political corruption. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on today.
Welcome.
So there's been a lot of things that are swirling around the internet about U.S. politics and the corruption that is going on. And one of the things that I like to bring up is a Ugandan, the son of a former Ugandan president that served from 71 to 79, Idi Amin Dada. He has his own TikTok, and he is claiming that Israel is blackmailing U.S. politicians, and they do have video proof of them doing illegal acts with minors, Democrats and Republicans alike. And I'm just wondering if this is something that is also swirling in UK media as well. Besides the fact
well,
that...
I'll tell you what, Sarah, yeah. I mean, I'm more than ready to believe that it's true. Indeed, I was one of the first voices alleging that it's true. But I'm so old, I remember Idi Amin Dada very, very well. I remember the British putting him in power to avert the socialist presidency of Milton Obote. That's how long I go back with Uganda. I was unaware that Idi Amin had a son, and I'm not immediately ready to accept him as an authority on what's happening in America. I don't even know if he's in America. His father spent his last years in Saudi Arabia. And TikTok is not always the most credible place to find facts. So it seems circumstantially highly likely that both parties are implicated in the Epstein affair, and there will be other Epsteins. There will be other Epstein affairs at different times with different people in which compromise has been gathered. We've heard some fairly spectacular examples of what might have gone on amongst these immoral, powerful circles in the United States. But do tell us more, Sarah, if you've got chapter and verse. We'd like to hear it. Go on.
Well, this is based on a video that is on his TikTok page that it actually was taken down and put back up. So it's being they're trying to silence it, maybe for misinformation. But I know his page does have 71,000 followers on there. And there's a lot of things that he touches on. And the other thing besides that, which is probably a more important matter, based on the United States media, the bias on it, because Trump bans any reporters who ask the real questions and any uncomfortable questions that he may look guilty answering. And what your thoughts are on that.
Well, it's no different to Joe Biden and the Democrats. They all do that. Biden banned all kinds of people from White House press conferences, and his press secretaries routinely lied to the country and the world. And so there's nothing unusual about Trump doing that. The truth is, Sarah, in your country and in mine, the uniparty political system, for that is what it is, there is no material difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, as there is no material difference here in Britain between Labour and the Conservatives. In fact, there's a strong feeling that such is the powerless political electoral position of both Labour and the Conservatives, that is to say the government and the opposition, are so far behind at least one challenger, and soon maybe behind two challengers, once Mr. Corbyn gets his show fully on the road, that the Conservatives and Labour may merge. I mean, it's almost impossible to believe for someone my age, but Labour and the Conservatives may form the kind of 1930s alliance that they had with a national government. with the opposition and the governing party becoming one formally. They already are in practical terms. They support exactly the same things and oppose exactly the same things. But for them to formally become one would be a very significant step further towards tyranny. Thanks, Sarah. In Minnesota, now our big donors tonight, I need to tell you about them. 4 million people watched the show last week, but they didn't all leave £1, $1, or €1. And if they did, we'd have a daily show. Yeah, think about that. If they all left $1, we'd have MOATS daily. That's how significant your funding can be. But anyway, you can go to moats.tv right now or right after the show and make a quick donation. It won't take you more than 20 seconds or so. We've had some great donations during the course of the show. Roweda Zain, Dimo Mitev, Sally Hossack, Dennis Freeman, and a special thanks to James Glass, who makes weekly significant donations to the show. A big thanks to all of you, and a big thanks in advance to all of you who are going to. Terence is in Reading on Netanyahu and Mo Salah. Did I drop Mo Salah in it somehow, Terence? I hope I haven't offended you.
Well, my wife was amazed at a Scotsman using Anglo-Saxon swear words. She was surprised that you're even using them. I said he's probably quite het up, as I am. The first thing
I'm quite angry. I'm quite angry, Terry, yeah.
Same here, Mr. Galloway. My stomach is turning over for years. Coming back to Mark Regev, the great journalist, on a par with Jeremy Bowen for writing nonsense and talking nonsense. He did an article in The Guardian. The Guardian, he described Millwall Football Club, and he said, Israel is like Millwall Football Club. They don't care if you like them or not. There was not one mention of the pink dusting, the murder, the mutilation, nothing. And it's obvious Mr. Mossad, Jonathan Freeland, his mate Mark Regev, is taking that back. The second point was the footballer. My word, Mr. Galloway, you worked in South Africa doing great work, and you saw rugby coming over and rugby having a little impact, a tiny impact, actually changing a little bit. The world could see what apartheid was like. And I had a phone call earlier today of somebody who works in Oxfam, and she told me today, in the West Bank, 61% of presence with aid is done by Oxfam. And she told me that 34 trucks in 2 months were meant to go in there, and only 12 got in. God forgive these inhuman people. Yep. Your opinion, Mr. Galloway?
Well, it's a sin of unimaginable proportions, and we're running out of historical equivalents to which we can compare it. The settlers being allowed to attack these aid trucks and destroy the contents. Not only are the trucks not being allowed in, but settlers are being allowed to destroy what's on the trucks, just in case the day ever comes when the truck is allowed in, is, I think, without historical parallel. And I don't understand why everybody's stomach isn't turning over, like yours and mine. But I singled out the footballers because they're very powerful people. They are very powerful social media actors, role models. People listen to them. Maybe they shouldn't, but they do. When the great Marcus Rashford began his campaign for free school meals for poor children in the summer holiday time, and the other great work that he did for the poorest children, having been once upon a time a poor child himself, he had an enormous impact. He changed government policy. He changed a conservative government policy. So where are all these footballers when Palestinian footballers are being massacred? And where are the Muslim footballers? And those in particular who have a very high profile. And if you're the Egyptian king, If you're the king of Merseyside, as Mo Salah deservedly is, Mo Salah could have turned the whole of Merseyside in sympathy for the Palestinians in Gaza. And he has the obvious locus. Hey, the captain of the Palestine football team has just been murdered in a bread queue, standing with a tin in his hand, hoping for something that his family could eat. What footballer would not condemn that? What Muslim footballer would not condemn that? Maybe I'm being harsh. One of my sons is a great fan of his, and he may not be happy with what I'm saying. But if I was Mo Salah, I wouldn't be able to sleep soundly tonight, having remained stumm about what's happening there. So you can leave comments on YouTube. You can scan the QR code now. You can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. As Nikos Thanopoulos has, how can the BBC write an article about the forgotten victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki but forget to mention the name of the nation that dropped the bombs? The irony is off the scale. You're right, Nikos. I made exactly that point earlier. And this has been happening for years now. Even Japan doesn't name the country that dropped 2 nuclear bombs on them, for God's sake. Charlotte Burns says Truman's legacy. He created the CIA, dropped a couple of nuclear bombs, started the Korean War, overthrew Guatemala for United Fruit, and unleashed the McCarthy witch hunt. Charlotte, I wish I'd said that. Brilliantly expressed. Studio Flash says China's communist government is so successful they had the US put sanctions on them. The irony. And Gary Swift says casino boss running the world. You couldn't write this SH1T. Captain Blimp says Epstein isn't dead, in my opinion. He is in Israel, which is where Maxwell will end up. Makes sense if Epstein's bank accounts are still active. Federico is in Canada on warmongers, which is indeed an international matter. Federico, go ahead, sir.
Hello, George. Here from Canada. My best regards. Okay, George, yeah, it's an issue. I wanted to talk about the elites and the problem with the elites. I was watching an interview just recently, maybe today, a few hours ago. Kim Iverson was interviewing Mr. McGovern. He has been you have interviewed him in your program. But when she asked him about the CIA how... Okay, exactly. But the question that she was asking about was that she doesn't feel that she lives in a foreign country anymore. And I think America, like the United Kingdom and Australia, and let's say the Western tradition itself, has been possessed by Israel. And it's not me saying it. You can understand that just recently Australia said that they will abide by the United States rule when it comes to anti-Semitism. That means that Israel has so much power in all the government that as long as they promote their elites, we're talking about what is the elites. I would like you to help me what elites are, to define them, because we all know that the elites are the military-industrial complex, the communications complex, and if you watch my last program, and then as now, I can show the people and your listeners about from the Shah Iran, but we can go further from Husserl to the Shah of Iran, and then with Randy Fine, which goes with a kippah to the American Congress and says that he's representing Americans. So when I see all this happening, and the elites in the United States, the elites in your country, in the UK, in England, and very few Scottish, and when I see that Ireland has, with the Minister of Foreign Relationships, is taken aside with Israel, I don't know what to think, but to conclude, according to the questions of Kim Iverson, that the people in this world, whether the Western tradition, especially the Western tradition because it has the most powerful atomic bombs that is confronting Russia now, has no representation whatsoever. So what are the elites? George, I would like you to answer me about that. And I wanted to
Yeah,
remind
well, I
you
will.
that-
I will. We're running out of time, Federico, so I'll have to answer you now. First of all, there is absolutely nothing wrong with a Jewish person wearing a kippah to the Congress or in the United States. The kippah is an indication, an emblem of the religious belief of the person who is wearing it. Just as there's nothing wrong with a very large number of MPs in Canada wearing a turban because they are Sikhs. That's also an emblem of their religion. I have in my pocket a rosary, blessed by the late Pope, because that's an indicator of my religion. It's part of my identity. There's nothing wrong with that at all. What is bizarre is that the Speaker of the American Congress, the third most important man in the state, closes the Congress early and peremptorily to avoid the Epstein affair being debated. And where does he go to dampen the anger in the country over that? He goes to Israel. And although a Christian, he prays with his hand on the Roman wall that is thought to be where the Western Wall of the Jewish temple once was. And he's wearing a kippah, although he's a Christian. That's like me going to Amritsar and wearing a turban. I might do it in extremis, but I wouldn't do it if I was being accused of being a slave to Netanyahu's criminal government in Tel Aviv in Jerusalem. I wouldn't do it because I'd think I'm actually going to compound all of my party's political problems by doing this just as quickly as an airplane could take me. That's exactly what happened. Who are the elites? Well, the elites have no religion. Green is their color, the color of dollars. They worship mammon. Some of them are positively satanic in their conduct of affairs, both on the personal as well as on the public level. But they can be white or black or brown. They can be Jewish, Christian, Muslim. They can be any religion, any nationality. As a matter of fact, increasingly, they have no nationality, really. They are well able to continue to enjoy lives beyond the dreams of avarice and to continually and continuously multiply their wealth. Billionaires are about to become trillionaires. Elon Musk is about to become the world's first trillionaire, a man, an individual, and not an old man either, worth $1 trillion. He just got a pay rise from Tesla. I think it was 95 billion extra on top of the wealth that he has already accrued from Tesla, from SpaceX, from, I doubt if Twitter's making him any money, but the other business interests that he has. Now, I have no particular animus against him, and he certainly has built Tesla into an exceedingly profitable company, and the shareholders are undoubtedly grateful to him. But 95 billion? A trillionaire? When, as far as I know, he's not even 50. If he is, he's not much more than 50. This is what we're talking about when we talk about the elites. It's not 1%. That used to be the 1%. We concentrated on our far on the 1%. It's more than 1%, but it isn't more than 10%. And it might only be a little more than 5%. That little more than 5% owns well over half of the wealth of the whole world of 8 billion people. when millions, hundreds of millions of people don't have enough or good enough food to eat, don't have clean and reliable water, don't have proper shelter, where malnutrition and hunger is available on our telephones amongst our fellow human beings, and the people that work the hardest have the least, and the people that work the least have the most. This is the crazy upside down world that we have. And if you believe, as anyone who is a believer in any religion, any belief in God must tell you that God cannot possibly approve of that. God could not possibly have created us to produce that. The devil, maybe. God, not. I've got to go because my good wife is in the room. Gayatri's got the social media news roundup. What's rattling, Gayatri?
Do you trust your government to regulate the internet? Interesting poll question, very interesting answers. Saxon X says no one has the right legally to regulate the internet. Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web to be an open communication tool, not controlled by government or big business. He made this explicitly clear as the way it should be used and warned against censorship and abuses. Now, this is the English scientist who invented www. In 1990. That's how far back it goes. If you think about it, it's only yesterday, isn't it? But he warned us of this, what we're facing today, back then when he started it. And as we're talking about progress, today in China, they launched the world's first 6G network. I mean, we hardly can get 3G around. And
I can't even get, we can hardly get 3G where we live.
Exactly. So when we say China lives in the next century, I mean, it's true. It's the truth. There's no denial in it. So a 6G network means that goes at a record 200 gigabytes per second. For all your tech nerds and geeks out there, you know, this is huge. So I don't know, maybe
that
one
went
day
right over
UK...
my head, but I hope somebody understands it.
Yes, it does so. Well, who knows? Maybe in 2 decades we'll get there as well. Meanwhile, we just have to do with 3G. Back to the poll. Gary Masters says, famous last words were from the government and we're here to help. And BR Political says, the only regulation they do is censorship. There is no regulation in Britain, never has been really, and will be unless some form of people revolution happens. Also the case for democracy. This is a lie as well. Britain has never been a democracy and never been rules-based. See also the USA. The most common answer to the poll is that they don't trust the government. Marco B6 guy says, I do not trust my government, period. Full stop. And it's a sad reality, isn't it, that people today don't trust the government, have no trust in the government, and therefore think about all our children and our generation being born and growing up in a society where there's no trust towards the government. And what can we do about that? So in the US, obviously, you've got the First Amendment. You've got the amendments. You've got free speech in writing, at least, as a promise for all its citizens. In the UK, we don't. So a matching comment comes from Karaoke Stars. He says, George, please read the Magna Carta and invite your legal team to break down and talk to us in layman terms about our rights. The people need to know. Tell us who is in charge. Magna Carta, that's what the UK legal system or society is based on, isn't it?
Yeah, up to a point. The Magna Carta is an illusion for many people who still have the belief that there are inalienable laws. As has been proven over the last few years, there very definitely is no law no right is inalienable. Inalienable meaning that no one can take it away from you. None of these rights are inalienable rights. All of them are subject to the decisions of the state and the government. And sometimes, as in the judicial review that's now been ordered into an organization, Palestine Action, of civil disobedience activists, peaceful civil disobedience activists who've never harmed the hair of a lamb, never killed a fly, but are now branded as terrorists. Now we're getting a judicial review on the lawfulness of that designation, and I welcome that. And there are still, at the upper reaches of the courts, people who believe in law. Judge Napolitano believes in law, and it always hurts me when I have to say to them that it's all just lipstick on a pig, and that lipstick will be wiped away anytime and always whenever the power in the state decides that it must be dispensed with. So the Magna Carta didn't give ordinary people many rights. In any case, the Magna Carta was a negotiation and a settlement between the all-powerful king and the nobles underneath the king, who wanted a share of the action, wanted a guarantee that their property rights would not be encroached upon, that their wealth could not be taken away from them arbitrarily, and so on. But the Magna Carta has very little relevance in the lives of the ordinary people then or now, still less now, because nobody even pretends any longer that we are governed by law. On the subject of tyranny and censorship, if I may, our show is an example of what's happening. And I single out X, Twitter, not because it's the worst, but because it's the best. So the best did this to us. Our interview with Scott Ritter has now been seen, it was only on Sunday, so 3 days ago, has now been seen by millions of people on all other platforms. Millions. On Twitter, when I last looked, it had been seen by 20,000 people. It's gone up a little bit now. But I raised the question of Elon Musk. How is it possible that someone with nearly 1 million followers like me can put out a clip that millions are watching on other platforms, but relatively speaking, hardly anyone has been given the opportunity to watch on X? Answer came there, none. By me raising it, more people saw it, but it's still a fraction of the views on the other platforms. So even on X, our interview on the danger of nuclear war, the danger of a new Hiroshima, a new Nagasaki, was so severely restricted that a tiny fraction of my own followers, people who've chosen to follow me, only a tiny fraction of them were given the opportunity to watch that clip. Look, it's nearly 9:10. Gayatri, may I take your leave? And we'll get out for chips pretty shortly. Yeah, you got one point to make?
Yeah, just one point. I know we're already over time, but I just want to announce that tomorrow we've got a No to NATO meeting, which is tomorrow, Thursday, 7th of August, 9 p.m. UK, 10 p.m. in mainland Europe, and 4 p.m. New York time. I mentioned mainland Europe because we're going to dive into what's happening in Moldova. We've seen it in France, we've seen it in Romania, same is happening in France. The aforementioned non-democracy we are living in.
It's a new Romania. They're stealing elections now in front of our eyes. And not just in mainland Europe, by the way, in the United Kingdom as well, as you and I both know. Okay, I'll see you shortly. Right after, I have taken a call from an Australian caller who describes himself as my fan. I'm always glad to meet a fan. Welcome.
George,
yeah, go ahead. What's the next caller?
Australia. How are you, buddy? Good morning, George.
By the grace of God, good morning to you, my friend. Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to talk to you quickly, very, very quickly, about the situation with Gaza and how, you know, that captain of the Palestinian football team was executed in cold blood for trying to get food for his family.
Yeah.
And how nobody spoke up about it in the football world. Nobody, you know, gave the condolences to him and his family or so on. It's amazing because if you remember, Diego Jota of Liverpool had the car accident with his brother, and that went global. When
very much so.
When the other Liverpool
and
player
deservedly
as
so. It was a real tragedy, and God rest their souls. But if even a scintilla of the worldwide sadness at what happened to Diego Jota and his brother could somehow find its way onto the air about the captain of the Palestine national football team.
Exactly. And this is where you look at it and you can see the difference between how people are being respected from one side and others are being forgotten on the other, right? So the consistency is not staying the same. So this is the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing I wanted to say was the interview you had with Larry Johnson. He hit the nail on the head. When you asked the question about the Senate, the member of Senate, the House of Senate, who went to Jerusalem, and he was at the Wailing Wall and he was bowing down to it, yet he did not go to the Holy Sepulchre as a Christian and give his give his prayers and so on to there. And he hit the nail on the head, because it's the evangelical Zionists in the United States who support this that's going on in Gaza. They supported George. Why? Theologically, from their perspective. They believe this is a necessity. It's a must that these people are to conquer the region. Why? Because they want the Al-Aqsa Mosque to fall and build the Temple of Solomon so that their Messiah can come and eliminate these people that we call the children of Israel. This is the evangelical mentality. So they are all for this. Even though it costs the blood of the Palestinians, they don't give a damn. They want their Messiah to come, and they want him to come quickly on their watch. Why? Because they want to witness what's going to happen. But they don't realize that this is God's will when this is going to happen. This is not their dictation. They cannot dictate the coming of the Messiah. So it's the evangelicals who are very powerful in the U.S. lobbies, who are backing the Israelis and the Zionists to do what they're doing to the people of Gaza and the whole of Palestine. They do not want a two-state solution, George. They do not want a one-state solution. They don't want a Palestinians living, breathing in that region. Why? Because they know that they're the hurdle that is stopping them from destroying the Al-Aqsa Mosque. You saw Ben Gvir the other day. He went into Al-Aqsa Mosque and he started praying there, which is illegal under international law. It's illegal. He's not allowed to do that. Yet he went in there and did it with opening arms, saying, what are you going to do? You Western people, you Eastern people, what are you going to do? We are here. We are here to stay. And finally, I want to say something. Did you see in Australia?
That's the best call. I've got to finish now. That's the best call of the night, and we've had some great calls. So don't be a stranger. Call me back anytime, because there's very many things I'd like to say in response to the excellent call that you have made, but I really don't have the time. I'm already a quarter of an hour over the schedule for the show. But the irony of ironies is that, how can I put this delicately? The evangelicals love Israel, but they don't love Jews. And they believe that on the return of the Messiah, all of the Jews will have to convert to Christianity or be murdered, put to the sword, killed. That's how much they love Jews. The golf clubs of America are not filled with Jews, if you get my drift. They don't love Jews, but they sure do love Zionism. They sure do love Israel. There's much I'd like to add to that. Maybe I'll get the opportunity on Sunday when, God willing, I'll be back here with the mother of all talk shows. Don't forget, No to NATO broadcast tomorrow. Be very well worth watching. Moldova might be the next Ukraine. It might be the next international crisis that threatens world peace. My last thoughts are with those who suffered and died in Hiroshima on this day. Good night.
It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. Go get 'em, George.